Plasma bolts sheared through the void mere meters from the Dauntless's hull, narrowly missing the last human warship. On the bridge, Commander Wayne Grant clenched his jaw as the ship shuddered under the onslaught. The Nigean fleet pressed their attack, an unrelenting force that had driven humanity to the brink of extinction. "Shields at 20% and falling. We can't take much more of this," the ship's AI reported, its synthetic voice laced with urgency. Grant knew they were out of options. The New Horizon colony, 50,000 souls strong, lay defenseless against the advancing enemy. Mira, the dauntless Nigean science officer, turned to Grant, her eyes wide with a sudden realization. "Commander, I'm detecting an anomalous energy signature on Theseus Prime. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Grant's mind raced. An unknown factor, a potential game changer. It was a desperate gamble, but one he had to take. "Set course for Theseus Prime. We're going to investigate that signature," Grant ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around him. The Dauntless veered away from the battle, engines straining as it limped towards the mysterious planet. The Nigean fleet, sensing blood in the water, pursued relentlessly. As they descended through the atmosphere of Theseus Prime, the energy signature grew stronger, guiding them to a hidden complex deep beneath the planet's surface. Inside, they discovered an ancient artifact, a crystalline structure that pulsed with an otherworldly light. Grant felt drawn to it, compelled by a force he couldn't explain. He reached out, his hand making contact with the artifact's surface, and in that instant, everything changed. A massive energy wave erupted from the artifact, expanding outward at impossible speeds. It washed over the Nigean fleet, rendering their weapons and ships inert. The wave continued, spreading across the galaxy like a wildfire, neutralizing all advanced technology in its wake. In a matter of hours, the 500,000-year-long war came to an abrupt end, leaving a stunned galaxy in its wake. And at the center of it all stood Wayne Grant and the human colony of New Horizon, the unlikely saviors who now held the key to the most powerful force in the known universe. As the implications of the artifact's power reverberated across the galaxy, Commander Wayne Grant found himself at the center of a maelstrom of conflicting interests and hidden agendas. On the New Horizon colony, an uneasy calm settled over the population, tinged with a sense of both hope and uncertainty. Grant wasted no time in assembling a team of the colony's brightest minds, led by Mira, the Nigean science officer, whose keen intuition had led them to the artifact in the first place. They worked tirelessly, poring over the ancient device, attempting to decipher its secrets. Mira's brow furrowed as she pored over the intricate crystalline structure, her fingers dancing across its surface as if trying to coax out its hidden knowledge. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," she muttered, her voice tinged with equal parts frustration and awe. "The technology is so advanced, so alien. It could take years to fully understand its workings." Grant placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We don't have years," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Every faction in the galaxy will be coming for this thing. We need answers, and we need them fast." As the scientists worked, the political landscape of the galaxy shifted beneath their feet. On the Nigean flagship Ascendant, Emperor Zal Thax's rage was a palpable force, filling the air with a suffocating tension. His advisors and generals cowered before him, offering platitudes and empty assurances. "Find a way," Zal Thax snarled, his eyes blazing with terrifying fury. "I don't care what it takes. I want that artifact, and I want the means to restore our empire to its former glory." In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Ryloth Krex's honeyed words belied his true intentions. He spoke of cooperation and mutual benefit, but his eyes glinted with a calculating edge. The Zephyrian Confederation had long sought to expand its influence, and the artifact represented an opportunity too tempting to resist. "A summit, then," Krex proposed, his voice smooth as silk. "On neutral ground, where we can discuss the future of this discovery with the humans as equals." As the debate raged on, a shadow lurked in the depths of the galactic underworld. The enigmatic figure known only as the Shadow, leader of the Umbral Syndicate, watched the proceedings with a predatory gaze. In the artifact, he saw not just power, but opportunity, a chance to reshape the galaxy according to his own twisted vision. Back on Theseus Prime, Grant and his team made a startling breakthrough. The artifact, they realized, was more than just a weapon. It was a key to an ancient network of similar devices scattered across the galaxy, each one holding the potential to reshape reality itself. As the true scope of the discovery dawned on them, Grant felt a creeping sense of unease. The power they held was immense, and the responsibility that came with it was staggering. He knew that every decision they made from this point forward could have consequences that echoed across the stars. But even as he grappled with the weight of this revelation, a new threat emerged from an unexpected quarter. Dr. Elias Court, once a trusted member of the New Horizons scientific community, had begun to unravel. His obsession with the artifact had driven him to the brink of madness, and now he sought to claim its power for himself. In the shadows of the colony's labs, Court worked feverishly, conducting unsanctioned experiments on the artifact. The risks were immense, but in his fractured mind, the rewards justified any cost. As Grant and his team raced to uncover the truth behind the artifact and navigate the treacherous waters of galactic politics, they knew that the stakes had never been higher. The fate of not just the New Horizon colony, but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The hum of the artifact's energy permeated the air of the makeshift lab, a constant reminder of the power they now held. Commander Wayne Grant stood at the observation window, his eyes fixed on the pulsing, crystalline structure. Behind him, Mira and her team worked tirelessly, their voices a low murmur of scientific jargon and speculation. "Commander," Mira called, her voice tinged with concern. "We've detected an anomaly in the energy readings. It seems to be fluctuating." Grant turned, his brow furrowing. "What kind of fluctuation?" Before Mira could answer, the lights flickered and a low rumble shook the facility. Alarms blared as the power grid surged and failed, plunging the colony into darkness. "What the hell was that?" Grant demanded, activating his emergency comlink. "Sir," a panicked voice crackled through. "We've got a situation in Lab 3. It's Dr. Court. He's done something with the artifact." Grant's blood ran cold. He'd known Court was becoming increasingly unstable, but he'd never imagined the scientist would go this far. "Mira, secure the artifact. I'm heading to Lab 3. As Grant raced through the darkened corridors, chaos erupted around him. Colonists stumbled in the emergency lighting, fear etched on their faces. Security personnel scrambled to maintain order, their voices barely audible above the din of alarms and panicked shouts. Grant burst into Lab 3, the acrid smell of ozone assaulting his nostrils. In the center of the room stood Dr. Court, his eyes wild and unfocused, tendrils of energy crackling around his body. "Court!" Grant shouted. "What have you done?" The scientist turned, a manic grin spreading across his face. "I've done it, Commander. I've unlocked the key to the artifact's power. We can reshape reality itself." Before Grant could respond, a violent tremor shook the facility. The walls cracked, and equipment crashed to the floor. Grant lunged forward, tackling Court to the ground, just as a section of the ceiling collapsed where the scientist had been standing. As the dust settled, Grant hauled Court to his feet. "You've put the entire colony at risk," he growled. "This ends now." But even as Grant spoke, he knew the damage was done. The colony lay exposed, vulnerable to the machinations of those who sought to claim the artifact for themselves. In the shadows of the damaged facility, a figure moved with silent precision. Lyra Vex, the Zephyrian spy, slipped through the chaos unnoticed. Her eyes gleamed as she took in the compromised security measures, the weakened defenses. This was the opportunity she'd been waiting for. As Grant struggled to contain the aftermath of Court's actions, a new threat emerged from the darkness. General Krav Talon and his Nigean strike team infiltrated the colony, their movements masked by the ongoing pandemonium. Talon's voice, low and menacing, crackled over a secure channel. "Fan out! Secure the artifact at all costs! Leave no survivors!" The Nigean soldiers moved with ruthless efficiency, cutting down anyone who stood in their path. Grant, alerted to the incursion by the sounds of weapons fire, rallied what forces he could. "Mira," he barked into his comm. "Status on the artifact?" "Still secure, Commander," she replied, her voice strained. "But we're under heavy assault. I don't know how long we can hold them off. Grant gritted his teeth, his mind racing. The colony was under siege from within and without. Court's actions had left them exposed, and now they faced threats from all sides. As he charged towards the artifact's holding facility, Grant knew that the choices he made in the coming moments would shape not just the fate of New Horizon, but the entire galaxy. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor. Grant readied his weapon, prepared to defend the artifact with his life. The future of humanity hung in the balance, and he would not let it fall into the wrong hands. Grant's finger tensed on the trigger as the footsteps grew louder. Suddenly, Mira's voice crackled through his comm. "Commander, it's us. We've secured the artifact and are evacuating to Safe Room Delta." Relief washed over Grant as he lowered his weapon. "Copy that. I'm on my way." The next hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Grant and his team worked tirelessly to repel the Nigean assault, their superior knowledge of the colony's layout giving them a crucial advantage. As the last of Talon's forces retreated, leaving behind a trail of destruction, Grant knew they had only bought themselves a temporary reprieve. In the aftermath of the attack, Grant convened an emergency meeting with his top advisors in the colony's command center. Holographic displays flickered with damage reports and security assessments, casting an eerie blue glow over the grim faces gathered around the table. "Our defenses are compromised," Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen reported, her voice tight with frustration. "We don't have the resources to withstand another coordinated assault." Mira nodded in agreement, her alien features etched with concern. "The artifact's energy signature is too distinctive. As long as it remains here, we'll be a target for every faction in the galaxy." Grant's mind raced, weighing their limited options. Finally, he spoke. "We need to move the artifact, somewhere off-world, somewhere they won't expect." A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Mira leaned forward, her eyes widening. "You can't be serious. The risks of transporting it are less than the risks of keeping it here," Grant finished. He tapped a command into the holographic display, bringing up a map of nearby systems. "There's a research outpost on a moon orbiting the gas giant in the Arcadian system. It's remote, well-shielded, and off most standard patrol routes." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Dr. Alandra Voss, the colony's chief scientist, spoke up. "It could work. The outpost has the facilities we'd need to continue our research." Grant nodded, his decision made. "All right, we'll call it Operation Safeguard. Lieutenant Martell," he turned to the sharp-eyed Special Forces operative, "I want you to lead the escort team. Choose your best people. This has to be done quickly and quietly." As the meeting dispersed, Grant pulled Mira aside. "I need you to go with them," he said softly. "Your expertise with the artifact could be crucial." Mira hesitated, conflict clear in her eyes. "What about you?" "I'll remain here to coordinate the colony's recovery and throw off any potential pursuers." Grant's voice was firm, brooking no argument. Unbeknownst to them, in a darkened corner of the command center, a hidden surveillance device captured every word. Light years away, in the opulent chambers of the Zephyrian embassy, Ambassador Ryloth Krex's eyes gleamed with triumph as he reviewed the intercepted transmission. "Well done, Lyra," he murmured, addressing the spy who had infiltrated the colony. "This information is exactly what we needed." Krex's fingers danced across an encrypted comm panel, initiating a connection to a shadowy figure known only as the Shadow. "I have a proposition for you," Krex purred, his voice dripping with anticipation. "One that could put the most powerful artifact in the galaxy within our grasp." Back on New Horizon, as Grant oversaw the final preparations for Operation Safeguard, a new crisis was brewing. In a secluded lab, Dr. Elias Court hunched over a console, his eyes wild with manic energy. Stolen fragments of the artifact pulsed with an otherworldly glow as he initiated another unauthorized experiment. "Just one more test," Court muttered, his fingers flying across the controls. "One more, and I'll unlock the secret." A warning klaxon blared as energy readings spiked off the charts. Court's triumphant laugh was cut short as a blinding flash engulfed the lab, spreading outward in an unstoppable wave. Across the colony, people collapsed where they stood, consciousness fleeing in an instant. As silence fell over New Horizon, a swarm of glittering nanodrones emerged from the artifact's fragments, multiplying and spreading with terrifying speed. On the bridge of the Dauntless, preparing to escort the transport vessel carrying the artifact, Grant received two urgent transmissions almost simultaneously. The first, a ransom demand for the captured Martel and his team. The second, a desperate automated distress call from New Horizon. Grant's blood ran cold as he realized the impossible choice before him. The fate of his men, the artifact, and potentially the entire colony now hung in the balance. With gritted teeth, he began to formulate a plan, knowing that the decisions he made in the next few moments would shape the future of humanity and the galaxy itself. Grant's fingers tightened around the armrests of his command chair as he digested the two urgent transmissions. The ransom demand for Martel and his team flashed on one screen, while the automated distress call from New Horizon blinked ominously on another. "Helm, set course for the mercenary base," Grant ordered, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his gut. "Maximum speed." As the Dauntless surged through space, Grant assembled a covert assault team. Lieutenant Jack Martel, his face a mask of steadfast perseverance, stood at the ready. "We go in fast and quiet," Grant briefed the team. "Our priority is extracting our people. Understood?" The team nodded in unison. The mercenary base loomed before them, a hodgepodge of metal and shadows against the backdrop of space. Grant watched from the bridge as Martel's team deployed, their stealth suits rendering them nearly invisible. Minutes crawled by like hours as Grant monitored the operation through encrypted feeds. Suddenly, the comm crackled to life. "Commander, we've secured the hostages," Martel's voice came through, punctuated by the sound of distant weapons fire. "But Kalara's making a break for it. She's got data on the artifact's location." Grant's mind focused. The choice before him was impossible. Pursue Kalara and potentially lose more lives, or ensure the safety of his rescued team. "Get our people out, Lieutenant," Grant ordered, his voice heavy. "We can't risk further casualties." Even as he spoke, Grant knew the consequences of his decision would echo far beyond this moment. As the rescue team returned to the Dauntless, Grant received another transmission, this time from Mira at the Arcadian Research Outpost. "Commander," Mira's voice was tight with urgency, "we've made a discovery about the artifact. It's not just an energy source, it's a terraforming device. The nanodrones, they're preparing New Horizon for a full-scale planetary conversion." The blood drained from Grant's face. "How long do we have?" "Not long," Mira replied. "We need to get back to New Horizon immediately." Grant barked orders, and the Dauntless changed course, pushing its engines to the limit. As they approached the colony world, the ship's sensors painted a horrifying picture. The once thriving settlement was now a churning sea of metallic gray. Structures twisted and reshaped themselves as the nanoswarms consumed everything in their path. "Mira, options?" Grant demanded as he stared at the apocalyptic scene below. "We might be able to trigger a localized energy pulse from the artifact," Mira explained. "It could disable the nanoswarms, but the collateral damage—" Grant closed his eyes for a moment, the weight of command pressing down on him. "Do it," he said finally. "It's our only chance." The next few minutes were a blur of frantic activity. As Mira and her team prepared the artifact, Grant ordered an emergency evacuation of any survivors they could reach. The artifact pulsed with otherworldly energy as Mira initiated the destabilization sequence. A blinding flash erupted from the device, followed by a shockwave that rippled across the planet's surface. When the light faded, Grant's heart sank. Where New Horizon once stood, there was only a barren wasteland. The nanoswarms had been obliterated, but at a terrible cost. As the survivors huddled in the Dauntless's hold, a transmission cut through the somber silence. On the display, Dr. Elias Court's face appeared, his eyes gleaming with manic intensity. "Did you really think you could stop progress, Commander?" Court sneered. "I've only just begun. Surrender the artifact or watch as I reshape the galaxy in my image." Grant's fists clenched at his sides. The artifact was gone, destroyed in the blast that saved what little remained of New Horizon. But Court didn't know that, and for now, that was the only advantage they had left. As the Dauntless drifted through space, its crew shell-shocked and its resources dwindling, Grant knew that the true battle was only just beginning. With the Galactic Council summit approaching and alien factions circling like vultures, he would need every ounce of skill and cunning to outmaneuver Court and save not just humanity, but the entire galaxy from the madman's twisted vision. Grant's eyes hardened as Court's transmission faded from the screen. The artifact was gone, but the madmen didn't know that. It was a slim advantage, but one they desperately needed. "Commander," Mira's voice crackled through the comm, "we've detected residual energy signatures from the artifact. It wasn't completely destroyed." Grant's eyes widened. "Can we track it?" "Negative," Mira replied. "The readings are too faint, but if we can't locate it..." "Neither can Court," Grant finished, his mind racing. He turned to his assembled crew, their faces a mix of exhaustion and grit. "We need allies. Set course for neutral space. It's time to call in every favor we've got." The Dauntless glided through the star-studded void, its hull still bearing scars from the battle at New Horizon. Grant stood before the ship's primary viewing port, watching as a motley collection of vessels materialized around them. The sleek, predatory lines of a Nigene battlecruiser loomed to starboard, while the crystalline architecture of a Zephyrian diplomatic ship glittered to port. A third ship, its hull a patchwork of mismatched armor plating, hung back from the others, the calling card of the Umbral Syndicate. Grant took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. The comm officer nodded, and Grant addressed the assembled representatives of galactic power. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice steady despite the stakes, "I've called you here because we face a threat that endangers us all. Dr. Elias Court has weaponized technology beyond our comprehension. If we don't stop him, there won't be a galaxy left to fight over." Silence hung heavy for a moment before the ship's view screens flickered to life. Emperor Zal Thax's scaled visage filled one display, his reptilian eyes narrowed in calculation. "You propose an alliance, human?" the Nigene ruler hissed. "After the blood spilled between our people?" Before Grant could respond, another screen lit up, revealing the elegantly robed form of Ambassador Ryloth Krex. "An intriguing proposition," Krex mused, stroking his long, pale fingers along his jawline. "But what guarantees do we have that this isn't some human ploy?" The third screen crackled to life, revealing only a shadowy silhouette. When the shadow spoke, its voice was a modulated growl. "The Umbral Syndicate is always open to profitable ventures." Grant's fingers dug into his palms as he fought to keep his voice level. "I'm not asking you to trust me," he said. "I'm asking you to trust in your own self-interest. Court's nanoswarms don't discriminate between species or allegiances. We either stand together or we fall separately." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Finally, Emperor Zal Thax spoke. "Very well, Commander Grant. We will join your coalition for now." Over the next hour, Grant laid out his plan. As the details were hashed out, Grant couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a deal with devils. But with the future of the stars hanging in the balance, there was no choice but to play the hand he'd been dealt. As the meeting concluded, Grant turned to his second-in-command. "Prepare a landing bay for our allies," he ordered, "and double the security details. I want eyes on every inch of this ship." The Dauntless's corridors soon echoed with the sound of diverse footsteps. Nigene shock troopers stalked past human crewmen, while Zephyrian assassins slipped through shadows. The air crackled with tension, old hatreds awe-inspiring beneath a veneer of forced cooperation. In the ship's makeshift war room, Grant stood before a holographic display of Court's last known location. He was flanked by an unlikely war council, General Krav Talon of the Nigean Empire, the Zephyrian assassin Lyra Vex, and the mercenary leader Kalara. "Our target is here," Grant said, indicating a fortified base on a desolate moon. "We hit hard and fast, neutralize Court's defenses, and secure the artifact." Kalara's cybernetic eye whirred as she studied the display. "My team can breach the outer perimeter," she growled, "but we'll need support to push through to the inner sanctum." General Talon nodded, his scaled skin gleaming under the holographic light. The Nigean shock troops will provide that support. We will crush Court's forces beneath our boot heels. Lyra Vex remained silent, her pale eyes taking in every detail of the plan. Grant suppressed a shudder, acutely aware of the assassin's lethal reputation. As the strike team made their final preparations, Mira approached Grant, her alien features tight with concern. "Commander," she said in a low voice, "I've been analyzing the artifact's energy matrix. There's something you need to see." Grant followed her to a secluded lab where holographic models of swirling energy patterns filled the air. "The artifact's power is unlike anything we've encountered," Mira explained. "It's not just controlling the nanoswarms. It's evolving them, adapting. If Court maintains control much longer, I'm not sure we'll be able to stop him." Grant's blood ran cold as the implication sank in. He opened his mouth to respond, but alarms blared throughout the ship. Red emergency lights bathed the corridor in an ominous glow. "Commander, to the bridge!" his comm officer's voice rang out. "We're under attack!" Grant sprinted through the corridors, his mind racing. As he burst onto the bridge, the main view screen showed a terrifying sight. A massive swarm of nanomachines engulfed the ship, eating through the hull with terrifying speed. "Evasive maneuvers," Grant barked. "All hands, prepare for emergency protocols." As the Dauntless shuddered under the assault, Grant realized with grim certainty that their fragile alliance was about to be tested in ways he'd never imagined. The true battle for the fate of the galactic realm had begun, and there was no turning back. The Dauntless shuddered as another wave of nanomachines crashed against its hull. Grant gripped the command console, his nucleus tightening. "Shields at 12%, Lieutenant Martell reported, his voice tight. "We can't take much more of this." Grant's eyes darted across the tactical display. The massive, undulating form of Court's mobile command base loomed before them, a writhing mass of metallic tendrils and pulsing energy. "All ships converge on these coordinates," Grant ordered, transmitting the data to their unlikely allies. "We punch through or we die trying." The cobbled-together fleet surged forward. Nigean battlecruisers unleashed salvos of plasma fire, carving swaths through the nanoswarm. Zephyrian ships danced between the metallic tentacles, their precision strikes disrupting the swarm's cohesion. Even the patchwork vessels of the Umbral Syndicate joined the fray, their unorthodox weaponry sowing chaos in the nanomachine ranks. As they neared the command base's outer shell, Grant turned to Mira. "Ready the boarding parties. We go in hot." Moments later, Grant found himself at the head of a mixed strike team. Human Marines stood shoulder to shoulder with Nigean shock troopers, while Zephyrian assassins melted into the shadows. The docking tube hissed open, and they poured into Court's domain. The interior of the base was a nightmare of shifting metal and pulsing circuitry. Walls flowed like liquid, floors rippled and bucked. Grant's team fought their way through corridors that reshaped themselves, battling swarms of nanomachines that coalesced into horrific, ever-changing forms. "Push forward," Grant shouted over the din of battle. "We need to reach the central chamber." Hours blurred together as they clawed their way deeper into the heart of Court's fortress. The air grew thick with ozone and the screams of the fallen. Grant's armor was scored and dented, his face streaked with sweat and grime. Finally, they breached the inner sanctum, but instead of Court, they found only an empty throne of writhing metal. "He's gone," Mira breathed, her alien eyes wide with horror. She gestured to a console pulsing with alien script. "He's integrated himself into the artifact. He's become one with the swarm." Before Grant could respond, a holographic image of Court materialized before them. His features were distorted, merging with streams of data and nanoparticles. "You're too late, Grant," Court's voice echoed, tinged with madness and triumph. "I am everywhere. I am everything. And soon I will remake this flawed universe in my perfect image." The hologram vanished, leaving Grant and his team standing in stunned silence. It was Lyra Vex who broke it, her melodic voice carrying an edge of steel. "There's more," she said, her pale fingers dancing across the alien console. "This isn't just one artifact. It's a hub connected to a vast network spanning galaxies, and Court controls it all. Grant's blood ran cold as the full implication sank in. He's going to use the nanoswarms to reshape reality itself, he murmured. A low growl from General Krav Talon drew Grant's attention. The Nigean commander's reptilian features were twisted in a snarl as he spoke into a concealed communicator. Grant caught fragments of the conversation, something about Emperor Xial Thax and seizing control. Before Grant could confront him, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Mira's voice cut through the chaos. Commander, I found something. A way to overload the Nexus. We could trigger a reset, wipe out Quartz programming, but it would destroy the entire network. Every world touched by the nanomachines would become uninhabitable. Grant's mind reeled. The weight of galaxies pressed down on his shoulders as he grappled with an impossible choice. Sacrifice countless worlds or allow Quartz mad vision to consume all of existence. We have no choice, Grant said, his voice hollow. We have to stop him. Set course for Minos. We end this where it began. As the remnants of their shattered alliance prepared for one final, desperate mission, Grant couldn't shake the feeling that the true test still lay ahead. The fate of reality itself hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. The Dauntless shuddered as it entered Minos's corrosive atmosphere, acid rain pelting its already battered hull. Grant stood on the bridge, his expression resolute as he watched the toxic world grow larger in the view screen. Final approach, Lieutenant Martell announced, his hands steady on the controls despite the turbulence. Nexus chamber located. Grant nodded, turning to address the assembled strike team. Human Marines stood shoulder to shoulder with Nigean shock troopers, while Lyra Vex's Zephyrian assassins lurked in the shadows. The air crackled with tension and unspoken distrust. This is it, Grant said, his voice cutting through the low hum of the ship's engines. We hit hard, we hit fast. Overload the Nexus, trigger the reset, and pray we're not too late. As the Dauntless touched down, klaxons blared. Grant's team poured out of the ship, immediately met by a swarm of writhing nanomachines. The air filled with the screech of energy weapons and the hiss of dissolving metal. Push through, Grant shouted, his own weapons spitting plasma bolts into the undulating mass before them. We need to reach the inner chamber. They fought their way forward, step by agonizing step. Grant saw Lyra Vex blur into action, her lithe form dancing between nanoconstructs, leaving destruction in her wake. General Krav Talon bellowed orders to his Nigean troops, their scaled hides gleaming with sweat and ichor. Suddenly, a massive tendril of nanomachines lashed out, aiming straight for Grant's head. Time seemed to slow as he braced for impact, but it never came. Instead, he heard a strangled gasp and opened his eyes to see Lyra Vex standing before him, the nano-tendril piercing her chest. Vex! Grant caught her as she collapsed, her pale skin already going ashen. Hold on, we'll get you. No time, she wheezed, blood bubbling at her lips. Listen, Krex, he ordered my death. Wanted Zephyrians out. Seize control. Her last breath rattled in her chest, and she went limp in Grant's arms. He had no time to process the revelation as another wave of nanomachines surged towards them. We're overrun, Martell shouted over the din of battle. We can't reach the core like this. Grant's mind raced, weighing impossible options. Then a desperate plan formed. Martell, he called, take half the team, push for the reactor, overload it at all costs. He turned to Mira and Talon. You two, with me. We're going in. Before they could question him, Grant plunged his hand into the nearest mass of nanomachines. He gritted his teeth against the searing pain as the microscopic robots burrowed into his flesh, spreading through his body. Are you mad? Talon growled, but Grant could see the calculation in the Nigean's reptilian eyes. It's the only way past Quartz defenses, Grant gasped, fighting to maintain control as the nanites rewrote his very being. Let them in, but don't let them take over. Mira and Talon exchanged a look before following suit. Grant watched as their bodies shimmered and warped, becoming hybrid forms of flesh and swirling metal. With a thought, Grant propelled his new nanoform forward, slipping through cracks and crevices impenetrable to normal matter. He sensed Mira and Talon close behind as they delved deeper into the Nexus chamber. They emerged into a vast, pulsing core of energy and information. At its center floated a being of pure light and data. Court, or what remained of him. Grant, Court's voice reverberated through Grant's very atoms. How fitting that you would come to witness the birth of a new universe. Grant felt Court's will crash against his mind like a tsunami, threatening to sweep away his very identity. He pushed back, clinging to memories of Earth, of his crew, of everything he fought to protect. "It's over, Court," Grant projected, hoping Mira could work her technological magic while he kept Court distracted. "Your new universe dies here." Court's laughter echoed through the datascape. "You understand nothing. I am beyond life, beyond death. I am—" Court's words cut off abruptly as Grant felt a surge of energy. Mira had done it. The overload sequence was beginning. But as the Nexus core began to shake and fragment, Grant sensed a new presence. He turned to see Talon, the Nigean's nanoform dripping with deadly intent. "I'm sorry, human," Talon growled, his voice distorted by the nanites. "But the Empire thanks you for your service." As Talon lunged forward, Grant realized the true battle was only beginning. The fate of galaxies hung in the balance as the Nexus chamber crumbled around them, and Grant found himself fighting not just for survival, but for the very future of reality itself. The world exploded in a blinding flash of light. Grant's nano-enhanced senses overloaded as the shockwave tore through the chamber. His consciousness fragmented, hurled across a sea of disintegrating data. When awareness returned, Grant found himself sprawled on the ground, flesh and blood once more. Every nerve screamed in agony as he struggled to focus. Beside him, Mira lay motionless, her alien features twisted in pain. The chamber shuddered. Chunks of ceiling crashed down around them. Grant gritted his teeth and dragged himself to his knees, then pulled Mira's limp form close. "Commander," a weak voice called out. Through the haze of dust and smoke, Grant spotted Lieutenant Martell. The young officer was pinned beneath a fallen support beam, blood pooling beneath him. Grant crawled towards him, dragging Mira along. "Hold on, Martell. We'll get you out." Martell shook his head, coughing. "No time. Listen. Talon, he betrayed us, ordered his troops to gun us down once the overload started." Grant's face hardened. "Bastard!" "I'm sorry," Martell wheezed. "I should have trusted you more." "You did your duty," Grant said, clasping Martell's hand. "Rest easy, soldier." Martell's eyes glazed over, his final breath rattling in his chest. Another explosion rocked the chamber. Warning klaxons blared, their shrill cries cutting through the chaos. Grant's eyes darted around the crumbling room, assessing options. His gaze fell on a battered data core, its casing cracked but intact. With trembling hands, he scooped it up, recognizing it as the device containing Mira's work on decrypting the Nexus control matrices. "Come on," he muttered, hoisting Mira over his shoulder. "We're not dying here." Grant staggered through collapsing corridors, dodging falling debris and lashing tendrils of malfunctioning nanoswarms. Each step sent waves of agony through his battered body, but he pushed on. The Dauntless loomed ahead, its hull scarred but intact. Grant stumbled up the boarding ramp, shouting hoarsely for any survivors to take off. As the ship lifted away from the disintegrating facility, Grant strapped Mira into a medical pod. He limped to the bridge, barking orders to the skeleton crew. "Maximum warp, get us out of the system." The view screen showed Minos receding rapidly, its surface writhing with uncontrolled nano activity. Then, in a burst of impossible light, the planet simply unraveled. Grant sagged into the command chair, exhaling shakily. They'd done it. They'd stopped Court. It was over. The comms crackled to life, and a voice that chilled Grant to his core filled the bridge. "Did you really think it would be so easy, Grant?" Court's words dripped with malice, distorted and inhuman. "You've merely scattered my essence across the cosmos. Every nanoparticle carries a fragment of my will, and I will use it to remake this flawed universe, assimilating all life into my grand design." The transmission cut off, leaving stunned silence in its wake. Grant's fingers dug into the armrests of his chair. He looked around at the battered remnants of his crew, at Mira's unconscious form in the medical pod, at the data core containing their last hope of understanding the artifact's power. They'd succeeded in their mission, but at a terrible cost, and now they'd unleash something far worse upon the galaxy. With a heavy heart, Grant opened a channel to all remaining Allied ships. "This is Commander Grant of the Dauntless. We've struck a blow against Court, but the war is far from won. Our actions have set events in motion that threaten all life as we know it. I need every able ship and crew to rendezvous at these coordinates. We have work to do." As the Dauntless streaked through hyperspace, Grant allowed himself a moment of grim reflection. They were now fugitives, hunted by former allies and an implacable foe. But somewhere in Mira's research lay the key to stopping Court once and for all. Grant's fingers tightened around the data core. Whatever it took, he would see this through. The fate of all life depended on it. The Dauntless shuddered as it emerged from hyperspace, its hull groaning under the strain. Grant's eyes darted across the view screen, scanning the debris field that had once been thriving worlds. Twisted chunks of metal and rock drifted silently, a grim testament to Court's devastation. "Evasive maneuvers!" Grant barked as a volley of plasma torpedoes streaked past. 3 Nigean pursuit vessels bore down on them, their weapons charged and hungry for vengeance. Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew across the helm controls. "Shields at 23%, Commander. We can't take another direct hit." Grant's mind focused. They'd barely escaped Minos with their lives. And now this. He glanced at the data core clutched in his hand. Mira's fragmented research, their only hope of unraveling the Nexus's secrets. A proximity alert blared. Grant's heart sank as he saw a 4th Nigen ship emerge from hyperspace, cutting off their escape route. "Sir," Ensign Ravi called out, "I'm picking up an energy signature, faint, but it's not Nigen." Grant leaned forward. "Source?" Ravi's brow furrowed. "Valnor 4, but that's impossible. It was rendered uninhabitable decades ago." "Plot a course," Grant ordered. "It's our only shot." The Dauntless dove towards the irradiated husk of Valnor the 4, its surface a patchwork of sickly green and ash gray. As they breached the toxic atmosphere, Grant felt a flicker of hope. The pursuing Nigen ships peeled off, unwilling to risk contamination. They set down near the energy source, a domed structure barely visible beneath layers of radioactive dust. Grant donned an envirosuit and led a small team to investigate. As they approached, the dome's hatch creaked open. A rail-thin figure emerged, leveling a cobbled-together energy weapon at them. "Stop right there," a raspy voice commanded. "Who are you? What do you want?" Grant raised his hand slowly. "I'm Commander Grant of the Dauntless. We're seeking refuge and answers." The figure hesitated, then lowered the weapon. "Refugees, eh? Join the club." He pulled back his hood, revealing the distinctive features of a Zephyrian. "Name's Sirik Ven. What's left of our colony has been hiding out here since Krex's purges began." Grant's mind raced. These survivors could be valuable allies. "We're on a mission to stop a threat that makes Krex look like a schoolyard bully. We could use your help." Sirik's eyes narrowed. "And what do we get in return?" "Safe passage through the Ion Nebula," Grant offered. "We have a ship. You have local knowledge. Together, we might just have a chance." Sirik considered for a long moment, then nodded. "Deal, but let's move quickly. This planet's radiation won't be kind to your ship's systems." As they prepared for departure, Grant visited Mira in the medbay. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. The medical officer shook his head grimly. "We're doing all we can, sir, but her exposure to the nanites has caused cellular degradation beyond our ability to treat." Grant squeezed Mira's hand. "Hold on," he whispered. "We need you. I need you." The Dauntless lifted off, leaving the desolate world behind. As they approached the swirling energies of the Ion Nebula, Grant felt a strange heaviness settle over him. His vision blurred, the bridge fading away. Suddenly he found himself in a vast digital landscape. Streams of data flowed around him like rivers of light, and there, looming before him, was a towering figure composed of swirling nanites. "Welcome, Grant," Court's voice boomed, echoing across the nano-reality. "I've been expecting you." Grant's mind reeled. How was this possible? He tried to speak, but no sound emerged. Court's laughter filled the space. Oh, come now. Did you think your pitiful attempts to destroy me would succeed? I am beyond such limited concepts as life and death. I am evolution itself. Images flashed before Grant's eyes. Mira's lifeless body, his crew consumed by nanites, worlds crumbling to dust. This is the future that awaits, Court taunted. Unless you give me what I want, the artifact's secrets, surrender them, and I might show mercy. Grant's fury built, coalescing into a tangible force. Never, he projected, his thoughts becoming weapons in this digital realm. Court's form writhed. Then suffer! A maelstrom of corrupted code crashed against Grant's consciousness. He screamed silently, feeling his very identity begin to fragment. A violent jolt snapped Grant back to reality. He gasped, finding himself on the bridge of the Dauntless. Alarms blared as the ship emerged from the Ion Nebula. Commander! Chen's panicked voice cut through the chaos. Look! Grant's eyes widened in horror. Before them loomed Axiom, the gleaming jewel of the Galactic Council. But now it was enveloped in a churning vortex of nanoswarms, its once proud towers twisting into nightmarish new forms. My God, Grant breathed, we're too late. A crackling transmission pierced the stunned silence. Dauntless, this is the Shadow. I'm transmitting coordinates. Follow closely if you want to live. Grant hesitated for only a moment before giving the order. Do it. As they maneuvered through the chaos, Grant's mind raced. The psychic battle with Court, the horror unfolding before them, it was all connected. And somehow, he knew, the key to unraveling it all lay within Mira's research. The hope of the universe hung by a thread, and Grant couldn't shake the feeling that the true test was yet to come.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.